Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome to the First Church in Boston's worship service, this 30th day of October of 2022. I am Edmund Robinson, the interim minister, continuing the worship tradition of this church, which dates back almost 400 years. We are the oldest church in Boston with the newest building. Our Paul Rudolph designed sanctuary in Boston's Back Bay is open for live worship. We also welcome those joining us live streaming on Facebook. We hope those joining off the premises will find the time to visit us in person some Sunday in the future when we can meet you. Come on down. We're accessible from the subway. I did not wear a Halloween mask today, but I'll open the service with some words from the great New England poet Robert Frost. I was reminded of these words when I drove my car through all the golden leaves which accumulate on the streets of Back Bay at this time of year. And we will be dealing in this service with the great issues of good and evil and impermanence. Robert Frost wrote, "Nature's first green is gold, her hardest hue to hold. Her early leaf's a flower, but only so an hour. Then leaf subsides to leaf. So Eden sank down to grief. So dawn goes down to day. Nothing gold can stay." And we have, since we're doing a service with a pagan theme, we're going to use the 4 directions that Joan Goodwin wrote, a friend of mine years ago, 446. You can follow along if you wish in your book. Peter.
Spirit of the east, spirit of air, of morning and springtime, be with us as the sun rises, in times of beginning, times of planting. Inspire us with a fresh breath of courage as we go forth into new adventures.
Spirit of the south, spirit of fire of noontime and summer, be with us through the heat of the day, and help us to be ever growing warms with strength and energy for the work that awaits us.
Spirit of the west, spirit of water, of evening and autumn, be with us as the sun sets and help us to enjoy a rich harvest. Flow through us with a cooling, healing, quietness, and bring us peace.
Spirit of the north, spirit of earth, of nighttime and winter, be with us in the darkness, in the time of gestation. Ground us in the wisdom of the changing seasons as we celebrate the spiraling journey of our lives. Our opening hymn is number 337, "Have I Not Known," to the tune of Jerusalem. Have I not known the sky and sea, put on a look as hushed and still, as if some ancient prophecy drew close upon to be fulfilled, like mist the houses shrink and swell, like blood the highways throb and beat, the sapless stones beneath my feet turn foliate with miracle. And life and death but one thing are, and I have seen this wingless world Thank you. Please be seated. A little word, this was supposed to be Gigi's day off, but Jacqueline had a tooth extracted on Friday and is not in any shape to play the piano right for us right now. So Gigi was very kind to step in at the last minute, agreed to play the hymns, and she'll play an offertory as well later on. Thank you. And I thank my fellow musicians for these are folks that I play with on Monday nights a lot at the Burren in Davis Square. So now our chalice lighting. Life is a gift for which we are grateful. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. Now I invite you to join in the First Church Boston affirmation, to rise as you wish or are able, and say it in unison. Love is the spirit of this church, and service its law. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Thank you. Please be seated. Are there any announcements from the floor? Elizabeth Levitt will be selling the note cards that she had 2 weeks ago, I think. So we're looking forward to that. Anything else from you, Elizabeth? Did you want to elaborate on that?
Simply that they benefit Hale House, and some of us from Hale House are members of this church. And Edward Hale was a minister of this church, and our place is named after him, like Fort Clarendon and Berkeley. This is our only form of fundraising for the resident council, of which I'm president. So it really means a lot to me if you want to purchase a box of lovely photographs of our house and some of the Victorian details, some of Marlborough Street, and a statue of Edward Hale, our included as photos. Thank you very much.
Good. Gigi?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. We're so lucky to have musicians here that play a different kind of music. I think it's interesting. I'm always up for that, and thank you for that. That sounds like a lovely thing. I want to remind everybody that next week I believe we will fall back. I believe that's correct, but in pursuant to that, I want to invite any of you who have a desire. Sorry, I'm moving your thing. Who have a desire to be part of perhaps a bell ringing venture for Christmas Eve. It won't be complicated. You don't have to read music. You just have to have a desire to want to try and ring some bells, because I know they haven't rung for a really long time. And if you're interested in that, then perhaps we can meet after this coming next Sunday's Fallback Sunday on the 6th, which is the day before the election. So if you could come after church, we would talk about it and maybe have a show and tell with the bells. We have lots of them. And if you know anyone who's not here who you think is dying to ring some bells, then let me know and let them know to come after church. Just right after service, we'll meet up here and maybe go up or whatever you'd like to do. So that is that. And I think I had something else, but I'm sure it'll come to me later. So thank you very much.
Beth?
Okay, imagine me right now with 2 hats. And a bell, there you go. I am the belle of the ball. So this is my ministerial committee hat. Sorry. And actually both hats are on for December 10th. Put that in your calendar as a must be involved with First Church Day. Ministerial hat, we are doing, the ministerial committee is doing with the UUA as part of the search, the Beyond Categorical Thinking workshop, which all the leadership has already committed to being part of, but we're inviting the whole congregation. It is a program, a workshop that the UUA offers, and it will be all on Zoom. and there will be more information coming in future emails and e-letters, so be on the lookout for that, but put it on your calendar now. That will be in the morning. And then at night, back membership, we're doing a potluck, December 10th, in some form or fashion. We're going to figure it out. Whether there's masks involved, whether the dishwasher works or not, we are going to do something, even if it's like tic-tac-toe in the amphitheater. We are doing something December 10th, as God is my witness. So put that on your calendar. Thank you. And I don't believe in God.
There also is, thank you. The other thing is that my course on UU 101, to understand why people can say they believe or don't believe in God with perfect impunity at a certain church like this, is going to happen next Sunday and the Sunday following at 12:30 after coffee hour. So if you missed the first session, you're welcome to come. You don't have that much to do to make up, and there's not any reading. There's no homework. Okay. If you're curious about what Unitarian Universalism is, from my perspective, come on, join us. All right. So we have some more Irish music for you.
You're listening to the First Church Boston worship service for Sunday, October 30th, 2022, here on Facebook Live. Our guest musicians for today include Cameron Kirkpatrick and David Neiman.
now time for a unison reading.
Good morning. Our unison reading is number 524 by Starhawk. Earth Mother, Star Mother, you who are called by 1,000 names, may all remember we are cells in your body and dance together. You are the grain and the loaf that sustains us each day, and as you are patient with our struggles to learn, so shall we be patient with ourselves and each other. We are radiant light and sacred dark, the balance. You are the embrace that heartens and the freedom beyond fear. Within you we are born, we grow, live, and die. You bring us around the circle to rebirth. Within us you dance forever.
We are now at the point for taking your joys and concerns. If you have any that you want to share, anything happening in your life, some milestone, some setback, anything that you would like to share with the congregation, whether you've walked in 5 minutes ago for the first time or you've been here for 30 years, please come forward now.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to tell you that today at 4 o'clock, I'm going to be involved with my first Zoom gender reveal, and I'll become a grand aunt, I guess, and I'll know whether it's a boy or a girl, so that's it.
Well, you don't know whether you're a grand aunt or a grand uncle.
That's exactly right.
A concern, as you all know, we're going towards an election. It's rather interesting. Elections are 1 week after Halloween. I find that interesting. I wanted to share a thought to you about the current situation. There was a lady named Hannah Arendt who wrote a book upon totalitarianism, and she said, totalitarianism does not come when people tell lies or tell the truth. It comes when people don't think it makes any difference. I have been pondering that statement for the current situation. Totalitarianism happens when people think the truth doesn't matter for non-truth.
Thank you, David. Is there anyone else that's sharing? Okay, Elizabeth?
I just wanted to say I know some Unitarians don't believe in prayer and address it to whom it may concern, but I do want to let you know, in my family, my brother-in-law is having a very bad bout of COVID in Santa Fe, and his name is Lloyd. And I think that the positive energy of people really transforms situations. My sister Connie is taking this very well, but I was really, really worried. So I thought I'd share it in our community of caring.
Thank you.
I'd just like to share that what I like about Unitarian Universalism is that there is a wide spectrum of thought. And while there are some here who don't believe in God, there are many who believe that there is an underlying consciousness of love in the universe. Thank you.
That really neatly wraps up the Unitarian with the Universalist, doesn't it? And I'll put one more pebble in for all those joys and concerns which remain in our hearts unspoken. reading for the sermon is from a sort of a manifesto written by the great Universalist minister Quillen Shin right at the turn of the century, of the 19th or the 20th century, in the year 1900. It's called Affirmations of Universalism. It's an amazing document. I recommend that you Google it and find a copy for yourself, because it really sets forth the idea of a God who loves everyone so much that he or she would not condemn anyone to eternal torment. This is the words of Quillen Shin. Science, penetrating to the heart of nature and unsealing its hidden laws, teaches us that there is but one force with different manifestations. It manifests itself in magnetism, in electricity, in heat, and motion, in chemical affirmity, etc. But there is but one great central force, and that is good. Way back in the benighted past, humans, lacking foresight to see how the discords and conflicts of nature would result in harmony, came to ascribe things they called evil to evil beings. Hence the world's belief in devils, ghosts, hobgoblins, and witches. All these are perishing. The light of science is killing them. The force behind all forces in all worlds is love. If God is love, should one soul get beyond the reach of this almighty force of love so that it is unable to draw it back, win it back, then there would be two forces in the universe, eternal discord. Our sermon hymn is number 73. We'll just take the first verse, the autumn verse, chant for the seasons, number 73. Whither, Witchery. Halloween is a contraction of All Hallows Eve, the day before All Saints' Day in the Christian calendar. All Saints' Day was originally established to honor the Christian martyrs from the time of the Roman persecution in the early centuries of Christianity. Those were the Christians who willingly faced the lions and thus gave proof that they believed that their faith would carry them to an afterlife, a serene afterlife in heaven. But there was another motivation for putting this celebration at the end of October, for the Celts had long celebrated that time as a pagan holiday. The end of October in the Celtic pagan calendar was called Samhain, spelled S-A-M-H-A-I-N, but pronounced Samhain. It was their new year, and it was celebrated with bonfires. There was also a legend associated with Samhain. There was a race of supernatural beings called Ashi in Irish who lived in their own settlements scattered among human settlements. And once a year at Samhain, they rode through human villages on horseback and sometimes captured humans and held them in their fairy hills. Frequently, when I do a service on a Halloween theme, I'll have a reading of a poem called Tam Lin, which describes a love affair between fair Janet, a nobleman's daughter, and Tam Lin, a knight who is being held prisoner by the fairy folk. These two have been meeting in the woods for a while, and out of this relationship, Janet has become pregnant. They hatch a plan to rescue Tam Lin from clutches of the fairy queen when the fairy folk ride through town on Halloween. She has to identify him in the crowd of riders, pull him off his horse, and hold on to Tam Lin while he changes shapes to various animals and objects. She succeeds in holding him and rescues him from the fairies to the dismay of their queen. I made that poem the centerpiece of the service around this time last year, and while it had certainly to do with Halloween and grew out of Celtic paganism, it didn't relate much to Boston or to this church. Today I want to come close to us and where we are by talking about First Church, the witch trials of Salem, and the two ministers which connect those subjects, Increase Mather and his son Cotton Mather, the second and third ministers of Second Church. That's Cotton Mather on your front of your order of service. Now, some of you may be thinking, how can these ministers connect the witch trials to First Church when they were ministers of Second Church? Well, as I've come to understand it, with a good deal of help from the late Leo Collins, and please anyone feel free to correct me if I got any history wrong here, Second Church arose as a separate entity, not out of some dispute with First Church, but merely because First Church had outgrown its building. Second Church had its inaugural service in 1650 and was a separate church from First Church until the First Church building burned down in 1968. As First Church was planning this building, the governing board of Second Church asked to rejoin the church they had left 320 years before, and First Church graciously agreed. This act of reunion conjoined First Church to Second Church and its ministers, including not only the two Mathers, but also Ralph Waldo Emerson, whose bust is out in our narthex. When I first came to Boston in 1995, this institution called itself First and Second Church of Boston, and only resumed the name First Church recently. Now let's turn to witchcraft. The Salem witch trials fit into a long pattern of persecution of supposed witches in Christian countries. I found one sentence very helpful in an analyzing article summarizing this historical fact. Quote, in the medieval and early modern eras, many religions, including Christianity, taught that the devil could give people known as witches the power to harm others in return for their loyalty, unquote. So the elements of witchcraft in this definition are the devil, who is alleged to be real, and the devil's power to harm others, and the devil's ability to delegate that power to those who will contract with him to do his bidding. And while we're on definitions, let me state my relationship to witchcraft in general. UUs during my time with this movement have accepted neo-paganism and Wicca as valid religious choices, and many churches used to have a chapter of CUPS, C-U-U-P-S, the Covenant of UU Pagans. I consider myself a pagan fellow traveler, but I do not put myself forward as any kind of expert on Wicca. I'm fascinated by it. We will be talking here about witch persecutions in the past, and then bring it back to the present. But that's not to say that Wiccans only existed in the past. We have Wiccans still in our society today. Start with that, go back to that definition of quote. Many religions, including Christianity, taught that the devil could give people known as witches the power to harm others in return for their loyalty. In this definition note, other aspects of magic or of supernatural means of acquiring knowledge do not fit. So a prophet who could foresee the future, a necromancer who could talk to the dead, a person who can tell whether someone is speaking the truth or lying, these are outside this definition of witchcraft. In the Salem trial, those who defended the prosecution of the alleged witches rested their position on a passage in the book of Exodus, which reads, "You shall not permit a female sorcerer to live." We don't know exactly what kind of person or her activity this refers to. In early modern Europe, there were two waves of witch persecutions, one in the late 16th century and one in the 17th. The Salem trials, the only witch persecutions I'm aware of in the New World, happened near the end of the 17th. A legal analysis from the law school at UCal Berkeley identifies several factors which led to these European witch hunts. First, Pope John the 22nd, 1316 to 1334, put forth the idea of heretical fact, which allowed heresy to be viewed as a deed and not just an intellectual crime. Another step was the establishment of a link between witchcraft and heresy, the link that had not existed before the end of the 15th century, which emerged thanks to a new theory of diabolical witchcraft that held that the practice of malefice, such as using religious objects to curse one's neighbor, in fact involved an active pact with the devil and was therefore a heretical act and not just a ritual performed by misguided country folk. The word diabolical, of course, means caused by the devil, so that there was a partnership between the witch and the devil, and harm was intended to come out of that relationship. There were even books written in that period about how to persecute witches. The most famous was Malleus Maleficarum, published in Germany in 1487, before Columbus's voyage to the New World. As the Berkeley analysis notes, the main purpose of the Malleus was to systematically refute arguments claiming that witchcraft did not exist, to refute those who expressed skepticism about its reality, to prove that witches were more often women than men, and to educate magistrates on the procedures that could find them out and convict them. End quote. Yet not everyone was convinced. The two waves of witch persecution that happened in early modern Europe were not uniform throughout the continent. There were very few persecutions in France, Spain, or Rome, in part because the Inquisitions in those latter places never believed that witchcraft existed. There were also a few cases in England, in part because of its jury system, but in Scotland next door there were plenty of them, and in the Alps and in Germany. The second wave of European persecutions took place between 1561 and 1670. There appears to be no connection between those persecutions and the Salem trials, which took place in 1692 and 93, except that the literature and the procedures developed for the European witch hunts were available to the officials in the Mass Bay colony. A very readable article in Smithsonian provides a good overview of the Salem persecutions. The historical context is that the new English king, William, had started wars in Canada and upstate New York, generating a stream of refugees to the New England coast. Community tensions rose as a result of this influx of war refugees. Does that sound familiar? Salem was two towns. What was called Salem Village in that day is present-day Danvers. What was called Salem Town is today just called Salem. Most of the action of the witch persecution took place in Salem Village, or Danvers as we would now call it. John Parris, P-A-R-R-I-S, arrived in Salem Village to become minister of the church there shortly before the events of the witch persecutions, while King William's War was going on, and he took a strong stance against letting any more refugees settle there. At some time before settling in Salem, John had traveled through the West Indies, where he bought an enslaved woman named Tituba. Some sources described her as an indigenous and others as African. She had care of Parris's children. In January 1692, Parris's daughter Betty, aged 9, and niece Abigail, aged 12, began having fits, uttering strange sounds and contorting their bodies into strange shapes. Another girl who was friends with them, Ann Putnam, aged 12, also began behaving oddly. A doctor called in could not find any reason for this behavior. A couple of local magistrates commenced an investigation. Under pressure from these officials, the girls named 3 women for afflicting them: Tituba, the West Indian enslaved person, Sarah Good, a homeless beggar, and Sarah Osborne, an elderly, impoverished woman. In the initial appearance in March of 1692, all three accused women were brought before the local magistrates and interrogated for several days, starting on March 1st, 1692. Osborne claimed innocence, as did Good, but Tituba confessed. "The devil came to me and bid me serve him," she said. She described elaborate images of black dogs, red cats, yellow birds, and a tall man with white hair who wanted her to sign his book. She admitted that she'd signed the book and claimed there were several other witches looking to destroy the Puritans. It should be noted that when Tituba's name had been first uttered by the afflicted girls, John Paris expressed an intention to beat her until she told the truth. Tituba therefore had every motive to give the interrogators what they were looking for to avoid harm to herself. She was in the position to be the scapegoat and seems to have realized that. As it turns out, in later tellings of her story, key details changed. Tituba spent most of the witch trials in jail, but at the end she was pardoned and allowed to go free. With the seeds of paranoia planted, a stream of accusations followed over the next few months. The number of accusations multiplied, and a representative of the governor arrived to sit in on the hearings. The Massachusetts Bay Colony had a new royal governor at the time, Sir William Phips, P-H-I-P-S. Phips responded to the growing number of witchcraft allegations by signing an order creating a new court to try the cases. It was called the Court of Oyer and Terminer, O-Y-E-R and T-E-R-M-I-N-E-R, for its functions were to hear, Oyer in Latin, and determine, Terminer, the cases. Governor Phips himself did not get directly involved in the witchcraft allegations for several months because he had to go to attend military defenses in Maine and farther northwards. As the prosecution commenced in the new court, the question arose as to one category of evidence: spectral evidence. Spectral evidence was testimony by a witness that the accused witch had appeared to her in a dream or vision, the type of evidence that cannot be corroborated or disputed by the testimony of anyone else. Cotton Mather wrote a letter to the judges of the court, which asked them to be careful in admitting such evidence. Quote, "I must humbly beg you that in the management of the affair in your most worthy hands, you do not lay more stress upon pure specter testimony than it will bear. When you are satisfied or have good plain legal evidence that the demons which molest our poor neighbors do indeed represent such and such people to the sufferers, though this be a presumption, yet I suppose you will not reckon it a conviction that the people so represented are witches to be immediately exterminated." End quote. He's really playing both sides against the middle there. It's really total ambiguity on that. At the beginning of this sermon, I had mentioned the idea of shape-shifting in the legend of Tam Lin. And here Mather is pointing out that the devil is perfectly capable of shifting shape so as to represent anyone. Yet, according to the analysis, the court largely ignored this request, sentencing the hangings of 5 people in July, 5 more in August, and 8 in September. On October 3rd, following in his son Cotton's footsteps, Increase Mather, then president of Harvard, denounced the use of spectral evidence. Here's the quote from Increase: "It were better that 10 suspected witches should escape than one innocent person to be condemned." For 20 years, I was a criminal defense lawyer. I must have used that line 50 times in trials. I never knew where it came from until now. The persecutions did not abate until someone leveled an accusation against the wife of Sir William Phips, the royal governor. That was the last straw for him. He abolished the court of Oyer and Terminer and sent the cases back to the regular court. That court decided that spectral evidence should not be admitted, and the rate of convictions dropped precipitously. Governor Phips eventually pardoned all the remaining living defendants. But 19 men and women had been hanged on Gallows Hill. One man was pressed to death with heavy stones after refusing to submit himself to a trial. Both Increase and Cotton Mather were public advocates with respect to the persecution, but most of their advocacy was to make the prosecutions more effective. They honestly believed they were doing the right thing. Were they? The controversy has raged right down to the present day. In 1953, Arthur Miller wrote his play, The Crucible, a lightly fictionalized account of the witch trials, which analogized them to the McCarthy hearings all about communist influence in America of his present day. Miller's play won a Tony Award and was later turned into 2 films, the last one of which was produced in 1996 on location in the North Shore. Now, what have we learned from this episode in our nation's history? That zeal for the good guys to win often isn't enough to amount to justice. That any legal system with the power over the bodies of citizens must be as reluctant to convict as to acquit. So much of this depends on whether you believe that some people can use supernatural means to harm other people. Remember that even back in the 16th century, there were no persecutions in areas where the ruling Inquisition did not think that witchcraft actually worked. Let's go back to our Universalist forebears. Quillen Shen, the great evangelist of Universalism in the late 19th century, wrote in 1900 what I've already read to you, but I'll read it again. Science, penetrating to the heart of nature and unsealing its hidden laws, teaches us that there is but one force with different manifestations. It manifests itself in magnetism, in electricity, in heat and motion, in chemical affirmity, etc. But there is but one great central force, and that is good. Way back in the benighted past, humans lacking foresight to see how the discords and conflicts of nature would result in harmony, came to ascribe things they called evil to evil beings. Hence the world's belief in devils, ghosts, hobgoblins, and witches. All these are perishing. The light of science is killing them. Where Christianity went off the rails, Shen is saying, is in conceiving the cosmos as a giant battlefield between the forces of good and those of evil. If you concede that worldview, almost anything goes. For much, if not most, of the evil that is committed in the world is committed under the pretext of fighting another evil. Science and the scientific worldview are high ground on which to stand. And from that perspective, we can only be ashamed that ministers of these churches were willing to countenance the execution of innocent women and men upon such shaky bases. Though I am fascinated by aspects of pagan religion, I feel as certain as I am about anything that you can't really harm someone by sticking pins in a doll or giving her the evil eye. We say there's no scientific basis for belief in a devil. But the problem today is that clearly a lot of the world believes a lot of things which are not true. And a whole lot of effort from government, corporations, and political movements is devoted to promoting belief in things which are contrary to fact. And we may see this to our horror or sorrow in the elections next week, right on our own doorsteps. Our former president uses the word witch hunt to characterize the multiple attempts underway in the legal system to hold him to account for the illegal acts under his administration. But the real witch hunt occurred 320 years ago when some 20 North Shore citizens were killed deliberately because someone concluded they had made a pact with the devil. In that persecution, the Mathers were enthusiastic bystanders. Cotton Mather attended one trial, that of George Burroughs. Burroughs was convicted and brought to the gallows. One of the tests for a supposed witch was that a real witch could not or would not say the Lord's Prayer. But Burroughs on that occasion said it perfectly. However, this did not save him. And after he was dead, Cotton Mather mounted a horse and addressed the crowd to argue that Burroughs' execution was a good thing. Now, before I close, I want to say that both Mathers were exemplary ministers and forces for good in other ways. We have a stained glass window in the narthex of Increase Mather going to London to negotiate a new charter for the Mass Bay colony. Cotton Mather was a scientist, historian, and prolific writer. They approved the persecution of the accused witches, but they did much other good. Increase Mather lived near the North Church while he was president of Harvard, but the college insisted he needed to move to Cambridge to be near his students, so he resigned his academic position rather than abandon his church. If I were to go to Salem to observe Halloween, I would not wear a mask or a funny hat. I would go to the memorial for the alleged witches, and I would let the town's formal apology at that memorial wash over me. Amen. Now, let us receive our offering for the good of this congregation.
The offertory for today is The Shaling in the Braid of Rannoch, a traditional Scottish folk tune.
Thank you. Please be seated, and I invite you to join me in extinguishing the chalice by saying in unison the words in your order of service. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. So we've had the tragic and the spooky. Let's have a little joy. 327. Let's go out on a Beethoven note. You want me to try it on the concertina? This is the two verses are in German. We don't have to sing those. We'll sing 1 and 2. Joy, thou goddess fair, immortal offspring of Elysium, mad with rapture to the portal of thy holy fame come. Fashion's laws indeed may savage, but thy magic joins unkin. Human mind is gone forever, beneath thy mild and gentle reign. Nature's wide dominion, and 'tis joy that moves the pinions, the wheel of time is round. From the bunchy roses flowers, suns come out their arms unwound. Distant spirits obey her power. Thank you. Please be seated. Spirit of the East, be with us always. Spirit of the South, be with us always. Spirit of the West, be with us always. Spirit of the North, be with us always. Blessed be.
You've been listening to the worship service of First Church Boston for Sunday, October 30th, 2022, here on Facebook Live. Feel free to join us each Sunday morning at 11 a.m. in Facebook or live in person at First Church Boston, 66 Marlborough Street, on the corner of Berkeley Street in Boston. I'm your announcer and AV technician, Craig Hildreth. Thank you so much for listening.